Colin and Stephen go to Japan.
Kyoko and Pero visit a post-industrial shithole.
So, okay, I read your story, Kyoko. Let me be honest with you because I'm your friend and have been reading your stuff, alright? Are you writing about stuffed animals again, Kyoko? You cannot keep writing about stuffed animals at age 53. So this time, it's about a crab apple-sized blue elephant called Stephen J. Fowler, who hails from Liverpool. You know, for a few times, that kind of story amuses the reader. A little rebellious Japanese woman writer tells a story of reservoir, Hello Kitties kind of stuff. Oh, so cute, so kawaii, yeah? Like the one about what? The one in which a militia of killer panda bears stick it up to the People's Liberation Army in Xi'an? What? The panda bears were real? Not stuffed? What do you mean real? It can be real. Of course I know giant panda bears don't live in a well-organized militia and raid human villages for a bloodbath vengeance. I just read your stories. I don't live in your fictional world, do I? So, okay, the killer panda bears were life and blood living creatures, not stuffed animals. Now, I get that. But that doesn't change my opinion on this new piece. Colin and Stephen go to Japan. By the way, how come go to is written in all caps?
I woke up this morning to 14 messages on WhatsApp and none of them from Kyoko. They were from my ex-partner. I dropped a few hints about this relationship into the conversation in the car, and weirdly at one point I actually started driving to the house we used to live in together and which he's holed up in still. My sat-nav just started guiding me there. I'd had a lot of weird thoughts between the hours of 4 a.m. and 6 a.m. Many of them were guilty thoughts about not journeying down on the train with Kyoko and Pero and instead fitting in 2 hours of training. What kind of host am I? These trains are going to be very busy and congested like a sinus, and then I sort of dreamed of the sinus train for a while, before waking up wondering if everything would go fine at the hotel near Tower Bridge where Kyoko and Pero would be checking in. The good thing was, I didn't have to have these anxieties alone because many of them were also the general vibe of the messages on WhatsApp that my ex-partner had sent me in the night. So thanks for dumping me in this post-industrial shithole was one. Another came with a BBC article from a historian attached to it. How do these imbeciles get jobs in academia rambling on about the most inane, obvious bullshit? Expert in fucking sheep mentality? The last one said, sorry for the tirade, I'm not in the best of moods as you can tell.
But this piece is different. Believe you me, Martin, because I'm not making it up. It's not fiction. It's true. No, you're right. Colin and Stephen haven't been to Japan. Not yet. But I've got to tell you a true story this time. Where should I start? So it was in Norwich at the event in Dragon Hall at the National Center for Writing. Stephen and I performed together, but so like 7 other pairs performed and event was brilliant. I love the way Colin read like he was the only member of humanity left behind after Pero's spaceship had departed for the galaxy of mud girls. Anyway, after the performance, 5 of us headed to the last pub standing. Yeah, 5 of us, with the formidable Griffin lady of Norwich, Kate Griffin. Stephen kindly offered to buy us drinks, a nice host as he was, and he left us at the table, and he melded into the crowd about the bar. Kate left the table after a few minutes. I thought she went to the bar to give a hand to Stephen to bring the drinks back to the table, Griffin being a nice host at Dragon Hall as she was. But she soon came back without drinks or Stephen, but we didn't pay much attention to it, just kept talking. But then, so the bartender lady showed up with a tray of drinks, four of them in total, and this blue elephant.
2 of the poets have put up nice photos of last night's event in Glasgow. Canelo beat Golovkin on points, and a BBC commentator said, it's time Golovkin accepted he's done for. What had Kyoko and Pero meant by we're going to see you drunk tomorrow night? Did they know something I don't, or was it a way of telling me to chill out a little? My trainer is always telling me this when we spar, to just chill out. He mocks me because immediately when he is about to put the timer on, my hands go right up to my face, expecting. I'm really bad at shaving, and I always leave a few longer hairs somewhere on my face, like one of those imperfect pots people bang on about the poetry of. I think my eye has become more inflamed over the last few days. I started thinking about the friend Paul told us about in the car, his muscular friend, and I found myself feeling inadequate in comparison to this person I'd never met. I wanted to meet him and exceed his lung capacity or something in some kind of test.
She just serves drinks to each one of us, and somehow she knew which drinks belonged to whom. A rosé for Kate, a red for Kyoko, an IPA for Pero, and a soda for Colin. At the end, she, the bartender lady that is, produced an empty brown bottle from the bag on the floor and left it on the table with the elephant. At first, we couldn't tell what it was, the bar being bar dark, and the thing was limp and soft and small. I thought it was some kind of table wipe or a small bag of gummy bears or something. And that was it. Stephen never came back. We got worried after like 3 minutes or so looking around for him, but no Stephen. So our natural conclusion was that Stephen had turned into this. And what really convinced us was the eyes. The exact same dilated, unflinching eyes of Stephen Color. Because, you know, Pero and I had talked about his eyes before this trip. We both had separately thought that he'd got eyes of not a poet, but like a pugilist or like a legionnaire just back from Algeria or something. Just look at these eyes.
Because I'm an idiot, while the kettle was boiling, I messaged my ex and said, okay, and as I was spreading raspberry jam on my toast, the phone started ringing. Today the trainer said, are you still putting the cream on your eye? The truth is I put every cream known to man on my eye, which might be the problem, I guess. Sitting on my bed with my toast, I listened to my ex tell me that I was stupid if I thought I'd be able to get a sandwich on the train on today of all days. Why did I hang around at the end of the event just trying to get everyone to leave like that? I said it was because of the people from Alchemy Experiment needing to get tidied up, but really it's just I find it so hard to talk to people properly these days. Even in Norwich, I've been like a ghost just fixating on flapjacks and dried mango and mixed nuts. The other day, mixed nuts.
Yes, we discussed why Stephen had turned into a baby fist-sized elephant. We were to drive from Norwich to Glasgow the morning after. Yes, I know, it's crazy, right? We arrived in Norwich that evening, and the morning after, Colin had to drive us all to Glasgow for like 9 hours in total. Poor Colin, but then again, he fulfilled his duty like no other. And by the way, my trip from London to Norwich was doomed to start with. I landed at Heathrow at like 2100, and the day after, all the trains to Norwich were cancelled because of a major disruption. And later, Anglia, they've got to be touching themselves, right? But anyway, they told me to take a train to Colchester, then a substitute bus would take us to Ipswich so that we can catch a train to Norwich. In the end, arrived in Norwich past 5 p.m. and Kate picked me up at the station, so it was a-okay. She told me Ian McEwan was in town the night before and he had to get off the train in Colchester like everybody else. Like any natural disaster, Greater Anglian major disruption before everybody equally. So coming back to the reason why Stephen had turned into this beanie baby elephant shape, because the plan was we all performed in Glasgow the day after, and we all knew that Stephen had some sort of problem with Scotland. Of course, he didn't put it that way. But it was clear to everyone that Stephen, had a problem with Scotland. Colin can attest to Stephen's unreasonable animosity to Scotland. Why? How should I know? Maybe Scottish tap water didn't agree with his stomach? In any case, our tentative conclusion was that Stephen J. Fowler would have rather turned himself into a flabby blue elephant in the size of scrotum than living through a live performance at the Alchemy Experiment in Glasgow.
The other day I was interviewing quite a famous writer in a public event, and before it we got a cup of tea in a janitor's cupboard downstairs from the venue. I said in that meeting, I know I'm so awkward right now, but I promise you when we're on stage I'll be fine. And then, to tell you the truth, I wasn't totally fine on stage, and at one point I told this anecdote to the audience that I'd said I would be fine before, and now look at me, ha ha ha. Later at dinner, the famous writer told the anecdote to everyone, but said that I'd be amazing when we got on stage. I really hadn't gone that far.
Oh, what a lovely city it was, Glasgow. We all enjoyed the dinner at the ubiquitous chef after the performance. The fresh oysters with some spicy dressing and grilled beets were excellent. And so this morning, when I was going through the pictures I had taken in Norwich and Glasgow, I came across this one. I swear Stephen wasn't at the table when I took this picture.
My gran ordered a treacle scone, and it was not sweet enough for her. This year in Greece, we met a three-legged dog called Pi, and also had some tormenting exchanges with a four-legged dog called Molly. Molly knows that I'm the weakest link, so always seeks me out for her games. But she's remarkably clever. She manufactured a solo game of fetch with me by placing a stone on my leg and waiting for it to fall off, then dashing off with it and repeat. I can still taste the zing of that dressing last night. I don't know how to end this story. I wanted to write to Pero's muscular friend and ask advice if they have some maybe, or Kyoko surely would have been the best person to ask if I'd got on the train with her. I could have, of course. After the training I did have a message from Kyoko and an email and half of a story and a missed call too. I changed in my car at the station, leaving a sweat imprint of my buttocks in the fabric, and had a bit of a guddle finding the right stairs. The brown bag of my sandwich on the train smelled badly of vomit, and I replied to Kyoko saying I just got on the train and I'll read your story now.
Once we were in London, Leo and I took Stephen to Elephant and Castle in the South Bank, hoping, some kind of magic would take place, but to no avail. Now I feel like we all have to live with the consequence. Stephen, the elephant. And that's how he'll show up in Japan with Colin. That's why I wrote this story, Colin and Stephen Go to Japan. Now, it's not yet another made-up story of stuffed animals going in. You see it in a different light. I can read it to you, or perhaps you read it to me, Martin. I'd like you to make it sound true. I'd like to make sure it sounds true to what will happen in 4 months.
Colin and Stephen go to Japan. This, oh my best beloved, is a story, a new story, a story quite different from other stuffed animal stories. A story about two wise poets, Mr. Colin Hurd and Mr. Stephen J. Fowler, who travelled all the way to Japan. There are 355 other stories about Colin and Stephen, but these stories should be told by 710 other poets in Peru, Bangladesh, Iraq, Argentina, Georgia, and many other countries. So for a reason that should be told in another time, oh my best beloved, Stephen was turned into a small blue stuffed elephant. Ever since his friend became so pocketably portable, Colin took Stephen wherever he went. Being a man of infinite resource and sagacity, Colin knew that Stephen would return to his original shape one day. He just had to sense the right moment when the magic would happen. Go to, said a government officialist-looking guy at the Osaka International Airport. Go to. But where? Where do you want us to go to? Colin asked. Go to Onsen, Beppu, Hakone, Yufo, Gero, Kinosaki. Go to. So from Osaka, Colin and Stephen took a Stork Express train to Kinosaki because being a man of infinite resource and sagacity, Colin had learned that in the high and far-off times, a family of storks had a nest high up on a pine tree over a hot spring in Kinosaki, and the limping father stork fell into the spring, and lo and behold, my best beloved, he could run and fly again. So Colin took Stephen to a hot spring bath in Kinosaki and soaked his little friend real good into the hot spring water. But nothing happened to Stephen except that he got really wet and stinky. Now Colin had to perform alone in Kyoto and Tokyo. And so Colin and Stephen will have to travel on around the world, searching for the miracle that turns Stephen back into his human Stephen shape. Travel on, dude. Be excellent to each other. The end.
The end.